Let me know if this has ever happened to you before. You wake up one day, you have your plan for trading, and immediately things go downhill. You start to trade, and you take an immediate loss, and then you feel the need to make up for that loss, and you start trading again, and then you start to you lose more money, and then you feel the need to make that up, and then you trade even harder this time. Well, surely this one will make up my losses, and next thing you know, you've lost more money in a day than you planned on losing. And on top of it, you just felt at the end of the day like your emotions were out of control. I think every trader I've ever talked to has had that feeling before of like, I had a day where my emotions are completely out of control. I've had days like that before as well. And so as we talk about this, as we go through this series on the basics of trading, kind of going back to the basics on trading, that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about controlling your emotions. We've all been there before where we feel like we're on this emotional roller coaster of trading. We get into a trade and all of a sudden our emotions are going, we're excited about the possibilities. And then the trade starts to go against us a little bit. And all of a sudden our hearts are in our throats. We're super nervous. And then it goes back up and we're excited again. And we're just kind of on this emotional roller coaster. Two emotions that you're going to battle the most as a trader are fear and greed. You're always going to be battling your own fear, and you're always going to be battling greed. And here's the thing, if you're afraid, you're not going to make money, because what will happen is you will miss entries because you're second guessing yourself. You don't have confidence in yourself. You don't have confidence in your setups. You'll second guess your entries and you'll miss them altogether and end up maybe getting in late and taking a loss, or not getting it at all. You will also sell way too soon if you're scared, and you'll end up not making very much money, and you won't have a proper risk to reward ratio. And then all it will take is one loss to wipe away all of your gains from the previous trade. And so fear is important to get under control. If you're greedy, what will end up happening is you'll end up taking setups that aren't actually there, but you see things that aren't there because you just want to make money and you feel the need to be in a trade. Or you'll hold too long and you'll be inconsistent at best because you will keep thinking the price is going to go up until it reverses and then goes back down. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break down these emotions, and we're going to talk about how some practical ways that as a trader you can combat some of the emotions that you struggle with and wrestle with as a trader. So let's talk about greed for a couple of minutes. And I want to show you on this chart. On this chart here, this is QQQ. This is just the 30-minute chart. I've got it pulled up, but you'll notice that the market moves in waves. It doesn't go up in a straight line, and it doesn't go down in a straight line. And so you kind of have this kind of move up, followed by a pullback, followed by a move up, followed by a pullback, followed by a big move up, pullback, move up, pullback, move up, consolidation, pullback. That kind of continues going down, and then move up. And then now we kind of started going back down again. So you just see that there are these waves in the market. And the ideal, what everybody wants to do when they're first starting out trading, is they want to perfectly time the top and time the bottom. And so what ends up happening is you're like, oh man, if I could just have gotten in right here on this candle and then sold right here at this perfect top and then went short and just landed perfectly here, and then grabbed this candle and held all the way up to here, and then sold there. Like, this is the way that we think. And one of the ways that you can know if you struggle with this is if you find that you've gotten out of a trade and you're constantly checking to see where it went, and you're checking to see how much money you could have made on a trade, that probably describes that feeling that you wish you had sold at the top, or you wish you had gotten in at the bottom. And that's the ideal. But I just want to tell you that you need to just come to grips with the fact that that is not likely. Like, it's not that you'll never time the bottom perfectly. It's not that you'll never time the top perfectly. Like, that happens to all of us. But the likelihood that you're going to consistently nail the bottom or nail the top of a trade is almost non-existent. Like, it's not going to happen. Why? Well, we talked about that last week. You don't get to control the price, right? Like, you don't control where it goes. So your goal is not to time the top. Your goal is not to time the bottom as a trader. And what happens is so many people, like, they try to time the bottom. And what they end up doing is they fight against momentum, right? And so they see this pullback here and they're like, oh, this is or they see this up here, you know, and they're like, okay, this just can't sustain. And so they're like, okay, this is definitely the top. And then they short it and it goes back and then boom, it just keeps going higher. Why? Because they're fighting against the trend. They're fighting against the momentum. The reason you fight against the trend and the reason you fight against momentum is because you're greedy, right? And you're seeing setups that aren't there because you want to time the top, you want to time the bottom perfectly. And so what will end up happening is you'll end up taking bad trades that are completely against the momentum, the trend of the day, or whatever. And then you'll be left wondering, why didn't this work out for me? Another one would be trying to time the top with greed. And I've seen this happen so many times. I've talked to so many traders. I've even done this before where you get into a trade and it hits this number and then it starts to reverse and it rejects hard. And you're like, well, if it just gets back up to that number, I'll sell. Just get me back up where it was before. And then it doesn't, and it kind of, you know, has a small bounce and then drops even further. And you're like, well, if it just gets back up to that level, I just want it to go up a little bit and then I'll sell. And then it never ends up happening. And then you end up holding too long where you take a loss, right? Like this happens regularly. Or you end up not only selling at a loss, maybe you average down on a losing position because you're just like, this has to go back up. This can't just keep going down, right? Like you're trying to time it. And you're holding, or you're asking me, should I cut this, right? Like what ends up happening, the reason you do that is it's greed. The reason you don't cut your losses is greed. The reason you don't take profits is greed. So let's go back to this illustration right here where I talked about these waves, how you can see these waves. Nothing goes up or down in a straight line. And we talked about this a little bit last week as well, but the goal of a trader is to ride the waves of the market. And so you're not going to time the bottom. You're not going to perfectly time the top. Like that's not how it's going to happen. And so what I want to encourage you to start thinking of as you think about trading, there are a couple of different ways that you can approach, how do I ride the waves as a trader in a way that's not greedy? What you want to do, like if you're taking this trade up here, like the likelihood that you're going to catch the bottom down here, the low of 364, and then ride that all the way up to 380 something is so small. But what you can do is you can catch it up here, right? Did you catch the bottom? No, but you caught it here. And then you can either sell once it's past its peak on the way down a bit, or you can sell, you know, in this general area over here once the consolidation starts. And so what you're trying to do is not time the top, not time the bottom, but you're trying to ride that wave. Another way to look at this would be like if you talk about a hamburger and you've got like a bun on top and a bun on the bottom, and then you've got the meat in the middle. Like you're not going to time the top or the bottom. Your goal as a trader is to catch the meat of the move. And sometimes that's going to involve I held a little too long and I didn't sell at the top, or I sold a little early. I got in a little bit late, and that's absolutely and totally fine, right? That's what you want to do. Or an even better and safer way to do this would be to, you know, you miss the initial move up, but you get in somewhere and you start taking profit on the way up, and then you let some ride the rest of the way and then sell your remaining shares once it starts to come back down. And so you're catching profit on the way up. That's an even better way to ride the wave. What you don't want to do is try to buy the bottom perfectly and hold to the top perfectly, because that is a losing game. That is greed that's controlling you if you do that. And greed will cost you so much money in the market. And so the way that you fight greed as a trader, and I'm laying these foundations before we start diving into the practicals of trading, the way that you fight greed as a trader is through discipline. Which means the setups that you take need to be perfect setups. They need to be great. You have discipline when you're following rules. And we're going to get into some of those rules in future videos. But the point is this: you fight greed through discipline, and you fight greed through downside protection. Set a stop loss. All right. That's how you fight greed. So let's talk about fear. So fear tends to come from two areas as a trader. The first would be a lack of confidence, either in yourself or confidence in the setup. The other reason we have fear as traders is a lack of control. Like maybe we understand and we take to heart that we don't get to control the prices of the market. And so therefore we're scared to enter into a trade because we're worried it's going to go against us because we don't control things. And so we've already talked in the previous video about lack of control of the market. And all I want to say is, like, when it comes to the fear side of things, you have to be okay with the variables that are out of your control in the market, while controlling the things that you can control, like your emotions, like your risk management, like your rules for entries and exits. The way I put it is this, and the way I think of it is this, is I can't control other drivers, right? So when I get in my car and I go somewhere, I can't control the other drivers on the road. And because of that, I cannot guarantee that I will safely get to the destination that I'm trying to go to. Does that keep me off the road? No. I may not be able to control the other drivers, but what can I do? Well, I can wear a seatbelt, right? I can drive distraction free. I can practice driving and I can get better at driving and I can be a good driver. See, the other drivers, the other variables that I can't control don't keep me from getting on the road. They just cause me to control what I can control and then trust that I'm going to get there safely. And this is also true in the market. There are lots of variables, lots of factors in the market that you can't control. You can't control macroeconomics. You can't control news drops. You can't control what the institutions are doing, but that shouldn't cause fear that keeps you from getting on the road. What it should do is cause you to want to control the stuff that you can control. So don't, like, the first thing you have to recognize if you want to overcome fear is that you can't control everything. And in some levels, you just have to be okay with that. Control what you can and trust the process for what you can't. And so if I want to have confidence in my trading and I want to kind of kill fear when it comes to getting into trades, what can I do? The first thing that you can do is you can have a checklist. I know it sounds so cheesy and so dumb, but like literally just a checklist. What are the criteria for your setups? And before you ever enter into a trade, make sure that all of the criteria are met and that nothing is missing from that setup. That will keep you out of trades. It will give you confidence going into trades if all of the criteria are met. And so have a checklist, just like, an airline pilot that has to go through all of the safety stuff before they take off. Before you ever enter into a trade, have a list of credentials of things that have to happen in order for you to get into the trade. And what I always recommend for people is I recommend, like, find one setup and memorize it and do the one setup over and over and over again until you completely get it and you completely understand it and you completely trust it. That's how you conquer fear and lack of confidence in your trading. Is you have to make sure that you're entering into a good trade and that the criteria for your trades are met. Because if all the criteria is met and you have a good process and you have a good setup, like, that should be all of the information that you need. You've controlled the things in your control if you've paid attention to that. The second thing that's going to help you overcome fear is practice. Practice. Like, the more you trade, the more confident you're going to be in the moves. The more you see your setups follow through, the less fear you're going to have. If you always sit on the sidelines and you always have fear, you're going to be scared to get into trades and you're not going to see what could be with your account and with your financial growth. And so I encourage you to practice. Start slowly. Start with paper trading. Move up to smaller position size as you figure out kind of how many shares or whatever that you want to take into a normal position size. You want to start small and then scale up as you build confidence, as you get better, as you practice. In the same way that, like, when you're learning to drive, you're probably going to start on a back road, gravel somewhere. You're going to start in a parking lot before you hit the highway at 75 miles an hour, right? This is the same thing with trading. It's like learning to drive. Practice will take away the fear. Another thing that you need is a proven setup. So you need a setup that's actually going to work out more often than it doesn't. And we're going to talk in future videos about what some of those setups are, but you want a setup that works more often than not. And so it's important that you journal and you figure out, was it the setup that fell through? Was it my execution that fell through? Like, what was it that caused this trade to not work? Or on the other side of things, what was it that caused this setup to work? And do I have enough data to determine if this is a consistent setup or not? So you need a checklist that you go through with your setup. You need to practice, and you need a proven setup. And then the final thing is you need good risk management. If you have a limit to your downside, it should take the fear away. If you know I can't lose more than this on this trade, your fear can go away, because you can, if you keep that small enough that you're not that concerned about the losses, or it only takes you one other trade to make up for your two previous losses, like, you're going to be fine. And you don't have anything, even as you're figuring it out, you have no reason to be afraid. The reason you're afraid is you're probably don't understand why you're getting into a trade, or you're going in with too large of size on a setup that you've not practiced and you're not confident in. Because if you're confident in a setup and your setup is proven and you're using the right position size and you're practicing good management, there's no reason to be afraid. And so when you get these two emotions under control, when you get fear under control, when you get greed under control, you are solving the biggest problems that most traders struggle with. The most successful traders are going to have to overcome if they're going to be good, and that is themselves, getting themselves out of the way, putting their greed aside and being content with taking the meat of the move and not trying to time the top or the bottom. So being disciplined, and then also fearlessly entering into trades by having certain criteria that have to be met to get into a trade, by practicing and sizing up slowly, by finding a setup that's actually proven, and by following good risk management rules. And so my encouragement to you, as you kind of go a little deeper in your trading, whether you've been trading for a while and you're just looking for a refresher, or you're just getting started trading, my encouragement to you is don't let fear cause you to overthink your trades. And don't let greed cause you to see things that aren't there or hold longer than you should. Hey traders, if you've enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, then I've got something special for you. Imagine taking your trading skills to the next level with a comprehensive course designed to help you get consistently profitable on any time frame, regardless of your availability. By joining the Legacy Profits Club Pro community, you're going to gain access to an extensive course that covers everything that you need to know to succeed in trading. On top of that, you're going to get daily trade ideas. You're going to get personalized feedback on your own trading, and you get to be a part of a thriving community of like-minded traders who are some of the best traders on the planet. But that's not all. We also have live Q&A sessions and live trading sessions and regular workshops to help you continue to grow. And you can ask questions. You can see our strategies put into action on a regular basis. It is the perfect environment to grow and refine your own trading skills. So if you're ready to elevate your trading game, click the link in the description below to join the Legacy Profits Club Pro community. Let's achieve those trading goals together.